folks, and welcome to the Oceania IFSC Bouldering Championships here in Portside Bouldering Gym, Perth, Western Australia. Jason Witten here with you, and in the last couple of days we've had all of the athletes go head-to-head. Only the top 20 went through to the semi-finals this morning, and only the top 6 have made it to the finals. Folks, let's not muck around. Let's get into it.
Coming for you. I'm coming for you.
Well, hello folks, welcome along to the IFSC Oceania Bouldering Championships here in Perth, WA, Western Australia, folks. We're at the Portside Boulder Gym, and this morning we had the top 20 athletes from the male and females go head-to-head in the semi-finals, folks, to see who went through to the finals. The top 6 get through to the finals, so this afternoon we're going to have those athletes out on the mats, on the boulders, to see who can take away the championships. Fantastic to have you on the live stream, folks. Welcome along. You're in for a bit of a treat today. We've got an amazing guest commentator on today, Campbell Harrison, our very own Olympian in the recent
Thanks
Paris
for having
Olympics.
me, Jason.
Yeah, great to have you here, Campbell.
To be here.
Mate, it's going to be an awesome afternoon, I think, with all of these athletes. You've been in this position once or twice before. What do you reckon? How are they feeling out there in isolation at the moment? 2 days of climbing, and now it comes down to the last 4 boulder problems in the last hour or 2 of their climbing.
Yeah, I'm sure they're definitely feeling a good mix of nerves and also excitement, probably. Nationals is always really special, and when you combine it with the Continental Championship, it kind of elevates it to that next level. So, hopefully, they've still got plenty of skin left and plenty of gas in the tank, kind of ready to go for this evening's final. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to see kind of what they can put forward.
Yeah, sometimes it does come down to the conditions, the skin, the psychology, but we do have the 3 nations here, Australia, Guam and New Zealand, representing, and that's great to see more and more athletes making those teams and traveling to all of the competitions. While we have you, Campbell, while we're waiting to see the athletes, they're out in isolation at the moment, and they'll be coming out in a minute, and we'll be introducing them all, and they'll be taking a look at the boulder problems. How did you find the Olympics? It must have been a pretty special moment for you in your climbing career.
Yeah, it definitely was a very special one. It's so unlike. In so many ways, it's just another competition, and then in so many ways, it's like unlike anything I've ever done before. Everything leading into it, there's so much kind of pressure and anticipation, and you're not really sure exactly what to expect. But I managed to really, sort of center my mindset around kind of the excitement of accomplishing this huge dream of becoming an Olympian. And yeah, it was really, really special. And I had such a good time, and I'm definitely enjoying a very much needed break at the moment from sort of that pressure. But yeah, it was a really, really special experience that I'll always be grateful to have had.
Yeah, I remember very vividly the moment that you qualified in Melbourne, and that was an emotional moment for you and everyone, I think. And it was amazing to see you guys, you and Oceania, so happy and heading to, a pinnacle of your career so far. So awesome to see you getting some downtime. I'm sure it would have been pretty full on to train for. That's for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
We're seeing some results coming through. Little recap of our semi-final from this morning.
Yeah, not too many tops
for the women.
Yeah.
No, we had Clear Hall making it through with 4 zones, no tops. And then, Boulder 2 and 3 saw some action, nothing on 1 or 4. Definitely a super hard round for the women and relatively hard round for the men still. We definitely saw a few more tops coming through on that one. Overall, some pretty tough rounds. A lot of heartbreakers really close to the top, especially in the women. A little bit more of a spread, I would say, through the men. We have a distinctly French-Australian field. I think Max, Marlo, and Nui are all French-Australian dual citizens. So we've got a half and half, which is funny for an Oceania championship. And then, Stan Lavender coming through really early in this morning's semi-final. He had I think a bit of a rough run in the qualifications and then really pulled it out of the bag for the semis. I'm lucky to see him in his second consecutive finals, because he was in finals with us last year as well.
Yes, he was. Yeah. And a couple of the Western Australian locals, Aidan and Maxim, up there today, doing quite well. So I'm sure the local crowd will be getting behind them. But we've got some Queenslanders, some New South Welshmen, and so on in the lineup, which is fantastic. So they'll be coming out in reverse order as you see them on the screen, folks. So Sam will be coming out first, Louis, Dylan, Marlo, Maxim, and Aidan, and that's how they come out in the competition, even though they finished in 1 through to 6 in that order. And the females, like you said, Campbell, were a little less tops and a bit more physical, those boulder problems. But I've been chatting to the route setters and had a look at a few of the boulder problems this afternoon, and they look quite exciting and quite fun as well. So we should see a little bit of action that'll entertain the crowd and all of those on the live stream this afternoon, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. That said, though, I mean, it was a low top round, but it was had no shortage of excitement. I felt like it begun and then it ended, and everything had kind of gone so fast. I was very engrossed the whole way through, which I think for a live stream, that we didn't have quite the commentary and that sort of thing, and to just be like so engaged in the climbing was really cool. I'm super excited to see kind of what they put forward. It's always nice seeing the climbers challenged, and the climbers definitely appreciate being challenged and having to kind of put everything on the line. So it's fun to sort of see the stakes be quite high.
Well, the conditions are Western Australia's put on some pretty good weather, actually. So the conditions are quite nice. It's not too hot. You'd think in summertime you'd be working up a sweat, but the conditions are fantastic, and I think this afternoon the athletes will certainly appreciate that when it comes to these final boulder problems. They'll be coming out in a minute, and we'll get a look at what they might think of the boulder problems. Campbell, talk us through the process now. So, for those at home who are regular climbers and watching the competitions, they know the rules, of course, and they probably know what's going to occur. But in a moment, we're going to come out and have a look at the viewing and things like that. Talk us through the competition process you've been through and what's going to happen.
Yeah, of course. Obviously it's one thing to watch the competition. It's definitely another to experience it. So the athletes will have gone into isolation a little while ago to warm up and prepare. They're probably pretty warm from semi-finals, so they'll do a little bit of climbing and stretching and just try to get the body ready to perform. Everyone's needs are going to be a little bit different. And then, soon they're going to be coming out to view the boulders. So as a group, they'll have 2 minutes per boulder to collaboratively plan out their round, essentially. So we'll introduce the athletes, and then shortly after that, they'll turn around and go through block by block and kind of assess what it is that they think they're going to have to do. And then because they get a 2-minute viewing period, they'll have a 4-minute climbing period instead of the usual 5-minute climbing period. So it does keep the action kind of rolling that little bit faster. But they'll have a little bit more of a wider view as to the potential methods to complete the boulder, having discussed it all together as a group.
Yeah, and one of the great things about climbing is that, you're climbing against the boulder problem, and, you do discuss it together as a group of athletes, which is kind of unique in the sport, really, when it comes to competition. So it's awesome to see. But we've got all of our athletes coming out now, folks, and you can see they're all fairly young these days, Campbell. I think sometimes when you're sort of mid-20s and above, we seem to be, maybe I'm talking for myself, a little bit beyond the competition scene these days, the young, strong ones coming through, but you seem to be certainly handling that in your world for sure, which is great to see. But there's some nice, very strong young athletes here today, and they've certainly entertained and shown us what they're made of in the semis, and let's see what they've got in the finals.
Yeah, definitely a relatively young field. I think we've got Judith Carroll as the oldest at 28 years.
Yeah.
And probably maybe one of the girls. I'd have to go through their ages one by one to see who is the youngest, but we've got some quite young athletes as well coming through their youth careers.
Fantastic to see. So, they're all inspecting the boulder problem now, folks, and they'll usually share some ideas and thoughts. But Campbell, what's your process when you're sort of looking at this and say, all right, how do I remember the moves? Do you try and put them to memory, or do you think you just look through it and let the instincts take over? So what are they doing?
A little bit of both, really. So first thing I like to do is sort of step back and view the boulder on my own and get my own sort of idea as to what I think the sequence is going to be. You're allowed to touch the start hold, so any of those first holds that has a piece of tape on it, you can feel. So that's a good little piece of information that you can kind of take in right off the bat.
Yep.
Check where the zone is, check where the boulder finishes, and just make sure that first and foremost you've mapped out all of the holds, you're not missing anything. And then once you've done that, you can start to sort of collaborate on any potential sequences that you might take through that boulder. Different athletes of different shapes and sizes, strengths and weaknesses are all going to have potentially different interpretations of the boulder. And we were talking before about how climbing is quite collaborative in this sense, because you get what you give, essentially. If you're willing to impart your interpretation upon others, then they'll give information back to you. And quite often it'll be in the viewing time, you'll get to see something, or someone will share something with you that you didn't initially notice. So it's a really good opportunity to set yourself off on a good foot, having all the potential sequences in mind.
Yeah. Well, listen, also folks at home, you can see some tape on the wall and zone and tops. Now, Campbell, at the Olympics, it was a combined event, which was sort of lead and boulder. But today is just pure bouldering. And so maybe you can talk the viewers at home who aren't familiar with, how it works, the scoring and, the rules around, start at the bottom and climb to the top. But there are a few nuances we all need to be aware of.
Yeah, of course. So to put it simply, essentially, a final round consists of 4 boulders per category. And climbers will get 4 minutes on each boulder. So each climber will have 4 minutes on the first boulder, and then they'll move to the second boulder, so on and so forth. And the winner or the ranking of the competition comes down first and foremost to who is able to complete the most boulders. So from start to finish, who can complete the most boulders. And then at a sort of midpoint of each boulder, you'll see a hold marked called the zone. And the zone is essentially a tiebreaker hold. So if you're able to reach the zone, that'll contribute towards your score and will come into play if you have 2 athletes who have the same number of tops. So if both athletes finish the round with 2 tops, we'll then count how many zones those athletes have. If they have the same number of zones, we'll then measure how many attempts it took them to top the boulder. And if we still have a tie after that point, we'll count the number of attempts it took them to get the zones that they've scored. And then after that point, you can also count back to previous rounds. So whoever had the higher ranking in the semifinals and then the qualifications. So we have quite a few measures by which we can split ties. But yeah, predominantly number of tops and then the number of zones.
Yeah. No, that's great, and I don't know if you just noticed boulder number 1 where there's a slab. I saw the route setters; they were taping the volumes on the edges, so the athletes couldn't put their fingernails behind the volumes. And I don't know if you can see there, the camera crew might get in and have a little look at the tape, but that's pretty unusual. But I saw them taping some of the volumes, getting the sandpaper out and sandpapering some of the texture as well. So there was a few tricks coming out for the route setters, but it's an interesting one, isn't it? So the route setters usually do 4 different styles as well, Campbell. From a slab to a something more powerful, maybe overhanging. How do you prepare in your world for 4 different styles? Is that something you mentally prepare for out the back and warm up on, or is it just whatever comes?
I mean, essentially, like, most of the warm-up has to be completed before the viewing. There's a little bit that can be done after the viewing, depending on how fast the round moves and what your start order is. But for the most part, the preparation for that has to come in the months and months of training that goes in before the event starts. So making sure that you have a really, really wide variety of moves in your sort of climbing repertoire, and you have experience across all of the different styles so that you're ready for anything, essentially, when the competition comes around. There's not really too much that can be done on the day of competition that's going to better prepare you for what you're about to see. You have to have it in the bank already. So these athletes will have prepared extensively, and now it's just time to execute, essentially.
Done the reps. Well, this blue one I was chatting to the route setters about, and they said it's probably one of the most physical ones, and you've really got to want it. And I'm really keen to see it, actually. Most of them, when they talked me through them and walked me through them, seemed fairly straightforward. And it's easy to say sitting here on the bench. They're not out on the mats, that's for sure, but fairly straightforward if you're strong enough to make the moves. But that blue one looks pretty interesting, so great to see all the athletes there walking and talking through it, what they might be going to try. But there's a few athletes here that have been around for a while. Claire Hall there, she's quite a competitor that's been, still quite young, but has been at many of the nationals. Same with Judith Carroll, and I'm sure you're familiar with a few of them. Also, Campbell.
Yeah, of course. I think we have in the women's, we've got this kind of mix of experiences. I think Claire, Rose, and Claire are all first-time finalists at Australian Bouldering Nationals, so that's really exciting for them. I think Claire in particular had a really stellar qualification last year, and then wasn't able to quite back that up in the semi-finals. So she'll be, I'm sure, quite pleased to have made that. And then Judith Carroll's making a kind of return to the finals, I think.
Yeah.
And then in the men, Louis and Marlo are first-time finalists, and then Aiden, Max, Dylan, and Sam have all got some degree of experience with Max being on last year's podium, in fact. So he'll be definitely one to watch in this final.
Yeah, he was sort of hot on your heels in the Oceania Championships, which was great to see. A lot of great competition there. But it's great to see some newbies up on the top 6, and we've got Claire, the representing Victorian, in the mix. So it's good to see.
And Maya Stazik as well from Victoria, also defending. She's going to be hoping for her 3rd consecutive national bouldering title at this event. So I'd be interested to see if she's feeling that pressure, or it's like a sense of comfort knowing that she's done it before and she can do it again.
Yeah. Well, and how does that play out for you? Do you use the pressure as a bit of motivation, or do you try and sort of put it to the side and you've done the preparation and just enjoy and feel the day?
I mean, for me, predominantly you have to trust in what you've done. Nothing on the day can really take away from the effort and the preparation you've put in prior to the event. So you just have to trust in all of your skills and competencies as much as you can. The pressure is obviously important, that sense that you care, that little bit of nervousness can be quite key in making sure you get the absolute most out of your performance, and you're able to give 100% every time you pull onto the wall. You definitely really have to want it when you're competing at this sort of level. But it's a fine balancing act between putting that pressure and expectation on yourself and just kind of letting your training show and just trusting in what you've done.
Take over. Well, it's a good crowd here today as well, folks. They've got about 200 people inside, and it's great to see. We've got about 200 online on the live stream as well, which is fantastic. So fantastic And thank you for joining us, folks. If you're there, awesome. Thanks for joining us. And if you are supporting someone or supporting everyone, great to see some rhetoric in the chat. Give everyone a bit of a shout out. We are going live as well today on KO Sports. So a big shout out to KO Sports, our broadcast partner as well. And a big thank you to some of our supporting sponsors as well when it comes to the Western Australian Government Department of Local Sports and Cultural Industries getting behind the event this weekend, which is fantastic. And also Stacks Climbing, thank you for supporting. These events don't happen accidentally. They happen when lots of wonderful people get together and donate time and money to get them out of the ground. So fantastic to have those supporters, and also a big shout out to all of the volunteers today to helping get the competition up and in such good shape today. So right now they've gone back out there to isolation, Campbell, and the first couple of boulderers will be out on the mat in a moment. Do you try and keep track of the score out the back in your mind? How do you track that? You listen to the crowd and feed off of that. What are they going through out the back there now? They've looked at the boulder problems, and now it's game time.
Yeah, you usually will have an idea at least after one rotation is finished, after everyone's tried one boulder. You'll have some kind of idea of who's been able to do what. The athletes, once they've finished the boulder, they're able to talk to the athletes who've also tried the boulder. So, they can communicate with one another and get an idea of how everybody's managed to perform. And that can be quite stressful for some athletes. Some athletes prefer to just put their headphones in and do their own thing. Others, like myself, tend to be quite chatty. I like to just sort of treat it like a relaxed experience and not get too in my head about things. But it can be kind of nerve-wracking when you're maybe not able to keep up with the pace of the rest of the field, and you've got to keep in mind that there's 4 boulders and anything can change at any point in time. We quite often see upsets where the person who's leading the whole way through the round is overtaken on the last boulder, and it can really change the way the results stack up.
Yeah, I think for the young athletes as well, seeing these competitions in an international format with the structure of that is fantastic for them. Aspirations for World Cup and the Australian team in Olympics. How did it first start for you? Were you always in aspirations in that space, or did it slowly come to fruition? Competing for the Olympics and the World Cup stuff.
Yeah, for me, I definitely was pretty motivated by competition straight off the get-go. I climbed with a few other athletes who were in comps, and it's always been what's excited me most in all realms of climbing, I think. And I still to this day, really enjoy, if I'm not competing myself, just being able to jump on a live stream like this or watching the comps. It's always really exciting. We got our first athletes coming out, ready to step up to the field of play. We got Sam Lavender and Clea Hall, both from Queensland. Both, wealth of experience. Sam with a few more finals under his belt, and this will be Clea's first final at a senior national level.
And she's done pretty well at the state level, but great to see her getting to the national level. All right, Sam's off. Started his first boulder problem, looking quite nice, moving fairly smoothly. Clea also started quite well.
Nice little foot first sequence. We saw a foot first sequence for the men's in semi-finals that was really tricky for some of the athletes. And it's nice to see the same thing coming around for the women.
Sam's still on the wall.
Making pretty
first attempt.
Short work of this so far, but not quite enough to nab that finish hold. So athletes do need to grab the last hold in control with 2 hands to be awarded the top. So that's something to watch for going through in the rest of the round.
Yep, and the top hold's orientated in a way that you just need to get a little bit higher on it. I can sort of see you can't sort of hit it at the bottom. The dish is a little bit higher, a bit more positive. Sam just hitting the sloper a little bit low on that. So you would think he'd get up to that high point again. Knows the boulder problem. Clea needs to find a way through this first part. She hasn't made the zone yet, but it's the first part of the Boulder problem that gets you some points. So Cleo doing the foot first sequence. Much nicer this time, keeping her feet on the wall. Into the nice, ooh. Making the zone, so that's good. We've got Sam taking his time to get back on the wall. And how do you manage your time, Campbell? Like, these athletes, so once you've got, to basically the top move, then Sam's probably resting and giving it the next go, the good go. Is that what you do? Do you sort of take the time, watch the clock?
Yeah, 100%. So, like, first things first, having had viewing before, you've seen the boulders, you have an idea of what you want to do. So you want to get on the wall pretty quickly, not wasting too much time. In Sam's case, he's done all the moves but one, and it's really just going to be a matter of how much energy he's got left when he gets to that last move. So we'll likely see him run the clock down quite far and get onto the wall with maybe only enough time for one attempt. Maybe he can pull back on if he has an early slip, but yeah, he wants to be as fresh as possible. Cleo, on the other hand, still has a little bit more of the sequence to figure out, so we'll see her giving a few more attempts, but 4 minutes is not a super long period of time, so
no.
They haven't got a whole lot to work with.
Now, if you've ever thought that doesn't look that hard, 4 minutes is a long time, folks. Get your stopwatch out next time you're at the Boulder gym and give it a whirl. Sam in that pinch there. Now, those holds are they're large, but they're not as positive as you want them to be at this last move again. He's been here before. He knows what he needs to do. Just not getting high enough on that last piece.
Yeah, those pinches, it's the kind of texture that wears out quite fast. So if they're fresh, they can be pretty sticky, but I would hazard a guess that these have been around in the gym for a little while now. Clea still figuring out this first sequence, but it looks like she's just out of time, unfortunately, for that one. So we'll see our next athletes start to make their way out onto the mats shortly for their 4-minute climbing period.
All right, our next two competitors out on the mats. Yeah.
Louis Fischel and Rose Marlowe.
Let's see if these guys can work out the sequence. Decent crowd here as well, getting behind the athletes.
Louis able to make that first move a little bit more static than we saw with Sam.
Rose moving pretty quickly through to the foot sequence, just making sure she establishes the zone, which is good. Louis up to the zone as well.
Rose is one of Australia's top outdoor climbers. She has some pretty impressive ascents out on rock, so it's not unexpected to see her performing well on the more sort of traditional power-based boulders. Louis making really short work of his flash on men's one.
Rose up to this last move here. Nice. Very physical push up into that overhead. Small hold there. Nothing really to hold on to, more like an overhead press.
Yeah, she had to squeeze herself into quite a small box for that move. And then it's quite an awkward movement up to the last hold. And like you said, you have to, rather than just being able to grab the hold, you have to kind of make a press into the final hold. Lots of core tension, pushing really hard until you can push high enough that you can establish both hands on the last hold.
You really got to trust in those feet as well. That's the thing with especially the volumes on the wall, folks. You could see quite rather large angled boxes sticking out from the wall. The route setters use those to change the shape and the geography of the wall, which is fantastic. They're a reasonably new innovation to the climbing scene back in my day, showing my age, but they were usually pretty flat and nothing going on. But these days, the volumes really bring a new dimension to the route setting.
Yeah, and there's definitely been quite the evolution in how volumes have been used, and you've seen a lot of variations in not only shape and size, but texture as well. So we'll see some boulders will have certain sections that have no texture, so it's a little bit harder to stand on or grab them, as opposed to the other sections, as we can see in this hold that Rose has right now, textured on the top and slick underneath. And she has a little bit more of an idea of what it is that she wants to do this time round, but still not quite able to squeeze herself into that small box as would be necessary to figure out that last sequence. But she's going to have just enough time for probably one more good attempt.
Yeah, it can seem one-dimensionally or two-dimensionally on the screen that it doesn't look that physical, but when you see the angle and the holds that they need to hold on to, or the body positions, they're quite physical. So, Rose going to rest up now. And, Campbell, when you're sort of looking at this, you leave yourself 30, 40 seconds, depending on the climb, what's
on
what's
average,
a bit of strategy?
a comp boulder is going to take about 30 to 40 seconds. Once you know the sequences, like Rose does, she's not going to need too much time to get to that last move, but it's still worth leaving a little bit of time to figure out that last sequence that she hasn't quite nailed down. It's going to be different for every boulder. Some boulders can be over in less than 10. This one's sort of in the middle, I would say. It's not super long, but there's definitely some sequencing to figure out along the way.
And sometimes the clock gives that little bit of extra adrenaline for the buzzer beater finish, but not today for Rose.
Yeah, really nice work through the zone there, but yeah, not quite enough for a top on that one. So I'll be interested to see how the next climbers are able to get on with the women's boulder. And yeah, in the men's, super quick flash from Loon, which kind of establishes this block as potentially a must-do in this round, or at least a must zone. Sam and Louis were able to make pretty quick work of getting to that zone. So
the zones as well.
An important block going through the rest of the round.
Well, we've got Dylan and Claire about to start their competition as well. Early days though, folks, but the tension's already building. You can feel it in the crowd, and the competitors certainly, like Campbell said, want to make sure they get some early points on the board to stay in contention for.
Claire's definitely a very technical, but also quite powerful climber.
Very strong,
very precise in a lot of her movements.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Very quick.
She's a climber I quite enjoy to watch. Oh, a slightly different sequence there with a press rather than pinching that high grade volume. And super close from Dylan there, very similar to what we saw from Sam earlier. So they'll take that zone, and both athletes will take their zones in one attempt.
In one attempt. Well, and sometimes first go, best go, Campbell. Hopefully that's not the case here. Both of them have really gotten to the last move in their first attempt, so you'd think that they'd probably rest up a little and give themselves plenty of time to and recovery to get that final move done.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a prime example of what I was saying before. Dylan he's done everything but grab the last hold, so he needs to be super fresh for his next go. He might potentially run the clock the whole way down. Claire still has a little bit to solve at that end sequence, so she might get on the wall a little bit sooner, because there is the chance that she won't figure out exactly what it is that she needs to do straight away, and she'll have to have maybe another attempt, or it might take her a little bit longer on the wall. There's a few different potential sequences you can take for this first block for the women. So yeah, as I expected, Claire's pulling on that little bit sooner than we'll see Dylan.
Yeah, like you said, moving through very accurately with precise movements, and very strong in that foot first sequence under the roof. Let's see if she can work out this now.
Yeah, so she's eyed up that right hand pinch rather than pressing down on the lower hold, but now having a little bit of trouble getting her feet up. Now we're seeing her in the same position we saw Rose in earlier, struggling to fit into that tiny little box that she has to squeeze herself into.
Bit of hip flexibility needed in that move by the look of it. Maybe not working as well as she would want it to. But Dylan back
Very
up.
few issues for Dylan making his way back up to the zone. Looking super strong on his pinches. And again, coming just shy of that last hold, which we saw Louis earlier make really quick work of. But yeah, not quite able to piece it together just yet. He might have enough time for one more go if he'd like, or he might choose to step back. We'll wait and see.
And it seems to be very strong and heavy on that right heel hook. And if you can get that in, it doesn't look such a great hold to be heel hooking on, but if you get that nice and stable, it gives maybe a little bit more height for Dylan there. But Claire very quickly moving through, trying to stay really efficient for this last go for her.
Yeah, it really doesn't look like this boulder is too much trouble for her up until this last move. Yeah, slightly different attempt at that sequence, but I think both athletes just falling short of the energy that they needed remaining to finish those boulders off.
Well, the zones, like you said, Campbell, seem to be achievable pretty quickly on these two first boulder problems, but top's a little bit elusive. Only one top so far. All right, Marlo and Judith out next.
Judith is probably she's our oldest athlete in the final today, and she also has quite a wealth of experience. She was in the category above me when we were youth athletes, so grew up knowing her. Lots of national titles under her belt, some international competitions as well. She took part, both Marlo and Judith actually took part in the Continental Olympic qualifier last year in November. Yeah, so lots of experience from both these athletes. I think this is definitely a breakthrough performance from Marlo so far. We had a training camp recently where he was looking super strong, and it's nice to see that he's kind of living up to that potential in tonight's or in this morning's semi-final, and hopefully tonight's final as well.
Yeah. All right, both of them looking strong so far. Only a few moves into the boulder problems though. Judith making the zone. Same with Marlo pretty quickly to the pinches. This is where the business end of this boulder problem occurs. A bit of a taller climber in this one.
Yeah, he's able to keep that tension on the hold under the roof. And so close to sticking that last hold. I think again he'll probably take some time and hopefully be able to give it more for the last move. And Judith tackling this tricky little press sequence for the end of the women's block right now.
Judith a bit taller as well. Might be a little bit more challenging to fit in that box, like you said.
For sure, I think height can be both an advantage and a disadvantage, and I think in the instance of the last sequence of the women's boulder, being a little bit smaller is definitely going to make it easier to fit into that space. But every athlete, has the same boulder at the end of the day, and you have to learn how to use your own strengths and weaknesses to your advantage to finish off the blocks.
Yeah, well, Marlo looked pretty comfortably there in that first attempt. I thought he was going to do, that quite nicely, but just maybe slipping off or just running out of the right body position in that top move. But hopefully he can repeat that pretty quickly and get himself a top here. The crowd has gone dead silent, holding their breath for him, that's for sure. But both athletes back on the wall now.
Not a whole lot of rest for Judith. She's back on pretty quickly, considering we saw her take a little bit longer on the wall than Marlo. I think Marlo was quite efficient through the boulder. Didn't really look like it was giving him too much trouble. But yeah, I think we saw maybe Judith a little bit tired from her previous attempt and not having quite enough rest.
He's up right now. He's got to match it. There we go, top, folks.
Top in 2 attempts for Marlo.
Looking good. And Judith really in the semis as well, really putting in a mammoth effort. It's very physical, and I saw her all the way down to the wire on a couple of the boulder problems as well. So maybe maybe that little bit of that physicalness showing up right now, but she's got to put that behind her and throw down everything she needs to do or can in this attempt.
Judith's special skill as an athlete, I would say, is the capacity with which she's able to fight on the wall. You often see Judith screaming her way through boulders, and she really gives it everything, which is super exciting to watch. But sometimes can leave you a little bit flat if you have a hard round like we saw in the women's semi-final this morning.
Yeah, well, she's got time, but does she have the energy left in the tank for this boulder problem? It's quite physical underneath here with that foot first sequence. Getting it a little bit easier through there. Oh, just failing to get that heel in. Judith leaving a little bit of time on the clock. Smart decision as an athlete. When do you call it quits on the mat, Campbell? Do you throw everything at it? Like, sometimes there's a little bit of strategy involved as well when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. An old coach of mine, we worked on, because the most important thing to remember when you're out in the field is that it's only worth pulling on if you can score points. You don't get extra points for getting back to where you were the first time round. So if you already have the zone and you don't have enough time to score the top, well, then there's no point pulling back on. Whereas if you don't have the zone yet and you have a limited period of time, maybe you can improve your score by getting back on the wall. But it's also worth noting that there's an advantage to, stepping back, taking that extra rest time, not being an extra attempt more tired than you need to be. Sometimes competition bouldering can be as much about choosing when not to try as it is about trying as hard as you can. You do sometimes have to take a step back and save your energy for a better attempt later.
Good advice, but these two athletes need to bring all their energy right now. This is their first attempt. Got Maxim and Summer. Both of them climbed very well in the semis. To be up in the top 3 spots on the way in for the finals. Maxim blistering in the qualifiers, flashed all 4 boulders, I think it was. But
he was really impressive in qualifications. I think both of these athletes have maintained provisional podium positions through both qualifiers and semi-finals. Both Summer and Max were on the podium of last year's bouldering nationals. So definitely a couple of athletes to watch.
Yep. I do know there's a bit of a local scene, hard training scene here in WA called the Gumba Shed, and Max and a few of the locals hang out there. So maybe we're seeing a little bit of that training pay off for Max and Aiden. But Max looking good, finding this sequence fairly straightforward. A bit
Max
taller.
Really likes pinchy, slopey boulders. And I think he left his feet behind. He is that little bit taller than the other athletes, left his feet underneath the roof, and it was a little bit more momentum than he could handle when he took that last hold. So we'll see him at the moment with 1 zone in 2 attempts, which puts him a little bit behind the other athletes. But if he's able to finish the round off with the top on that boulder, then it could be a different game.
Yep. Summer already got the zone in her first attempt. So now it would be probably a good idea for her to sort of rest and give it one good whirl. Clock's ticking down. Minute 46, but plenty of time, that's for sure. Max's attempt, I'm sure he'll learn pretty quickly from that last attempt. And like you said, Campbell, get those legs a little bit higher so that the momentum doesn't take him off the wall. That top hole isn't as positive as you might want it to be. So let's see what Summer's got. Now, Summer's a little bit shorter, so maybe this sequence might be a little bit tougher, but maybe that top sequence might work a little bit easier for her. We'll see if she can get to that next sequence.
She looks like she's maybe not quite confident in her finger strength for that move, but she's established the zone now and outfall, and unfortunately just short of that next slot. But yeah, she wasn't quite able to lock down on that crimp in the way that she might want to. Max is back on the wall, and he looks a little nervous in his first couple of attempts. I know that this national title is definitely something that he will have his sights on. So I'm sure there is a little bit of a little bit of nerves and anxiety going into this round for him, but hopefully he'll
left his legs low again, and that momentum's taking him away, Campbell.
Yeah, and he's quite a flexible athlete as well. His high step is really impressive, so it's unusual, I think, to see him not utilizing that skill.
Maybe he's not seeing it. Maybe a little bit of nervousness, like you said, or pressure. But hopefully he can sort that out. Doesn't have time to, though. The clock counting down, 15 seconds, not going to be. So there you go.
He goes fast. He goes so fast, especially coming from 5 minutes. The difference between 5 minutes and 4 minutes for a boulder might not seem like much, but when you're on the mats, it's a whole attempt, or it's a whole rest period, or time to brush the hole. You lose that flow and you come out for finals, and it's this different game.
Well, certainly Aidan threw it down in the semis, Mayer as well, and so these are our top position finalists, and let's see how they handle this first boulder problem.
Absolutely. We've got our defending champion from the last 2 years, Mayer Stazic from Victoria, and Aidan Yanov, the local hero here at Portside.
Yeah, Portside regular. Now, we saw Mayer bring out the little foot mat. Do you always do that, Campbell? Is there certain things that you take on the boulder mat with you, or is it just straight out and get it done?
A mat or a towel can be important, particularly if the mats are vinyl, whereas these we've got carpeted mats, so it's a little bit less of the dirt and chalk and whatnot sticks to your shoes. But yeah, so far, Mayer's both athletes actually making pretty good work of this. Aidan falling off just shy of that second last hold, and Mayer, our first female athlete, we're seeing sort of get close to sticking that last move, but first attempt for both athletes, so plenty of time ahead for them. But yeah, having a towel or something to clean off your shoes can be quite important, depending on the venue and depending on sort of what your process is.
Yeah, bit of a heartbreaker there. Sometimes the distance between the zone and the top can be quite a distance, and it's a bit of a heartbreaker to put all that effort in not to hold the final hold, and that's part of understanding your own condition or your own level where you are at the competition, whether you should give it a good whirl because you think you're going to get to the top, or like Campbell said before, maybe back off and say, all right, well, I'll save that skin and that effort for the next one because the top's maybe elusive. But Mayer looking good, getting to this position pretty quickly. The crowd's pretty keen to see a top, and I'm sure Mayer is keen to make a top two looking nice. Oh, come on. Oh,
She's,
wow.
Looking good, and we see our first top in the women's field. Again, Mayer Stazic showing exactly why she's the defending national champion.
Fantastic. Well, there you go, folks. That's how it's done. And Aidan's still got some time on the clock, 1:50, plenty of time to do it. And all eyes on him. He's struggling to get to that last pinch there, so twice has come off at that section. Maybe he's worked out a different sequence, but give himself a little bit more time, resting up, not rushing it. Smart play.
Aidan is coming off the back of a short but successful international season. Australia was allowed to send some athletes to the European Cups this year, so he was able to score a semi-final placing at one of the European Cups in bouldering. So he's sort of been able to show that he's in shape after a pretty significant finger injury last year that he came off of. I know he's been working really, really hard to come back from that one, and it certainly looks like he's pieced together a lot of those weaknesses, and he's definitely looking in good form at this event.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's turned it on in the semis, and let's see what he can do in this final right now. Got that pinch. Oh, here we go. Come on. That's showing some amazing strength. Such a high foot.
I think, some of the other athletes we saw picking that move, when they placed the right heel on the lower pinch, they were able to sort of cam their toe into the pinch above, which gave them just that little bit more stability going for the last hold, whereas Aidan's heel was quite far back on the hold and that little bit less stable. So, only two tops on that boulder from Louis and Marlowe, so quite close together for them. And then our athletes, again, quite close together with attempts to zone